Holly, I love the fact that prosecutors called Kelsie's mom first. Number one, so she can get it out of the way because it's difficult. But number two, to make this real for the jury, because no body has been recovered. There's not going to be autopsy pictures. They're not going to see any of that. But this jury has to understand that Kelsie Schelling existed. She was someone. She was someone's daughter. She was carrying a child. And I think the jury gets that through her mom.
Absolutely, Vinny. It's very compelling. And when you're talking about a mother who was murdered, who better to put on the stand to describe it is that person's mother. So it's already tying in subconsciously the family relationship, the mother, the child, the caring. But I do think there's an uphill battle for this prosecution. And I am also, mindful of the fact that cases that don't involve bodies actually have a higher conviction rate than the overall conviction rate for all murders. But this one's tough. And I read those text messages differently. When Dante was telling his mom, I'm going to get her out of here, she's 100% not pregnant, I have read that in a different light than I just killed her and I'm moving the body out and I'm ready to go smoke pot with my mom. I took it more as him saying, let me get this girl out of here. She's not pregnant, blah, blah, blah. But we'll see. I'm sure there'll be more evidence to come out in the trial, and I'm sure we'll hear the coverage of it, and I'll be happy to comment as the evidence unfolds.
Absolutely. And by the way, folks, the reason you're not seeing the trial is they have banned cameras in the courtroom for this trial. That was a decision made by the judge. For whatever reason, doesn't want the public to see a public trial. Neama Rahmani, as a prosecutor in a case like this, where the defense is not even going to concede that Kelsie Schelling is dead. I mean, really? Where did she go? She left her mother. She's going to go raise this child on her own in some remote place and not, it's an absurd argument, isn't it?
Absolutely absurd. It's been 8 years. We know that she's dead. And as a prosecutor, you don't have a body, you don't have a murder weapon, but you have motive, you have opportunity, you have text messages from Lucas where he's clearly upset that his girlfriend is pregnant. You have him taking money out of her bank account using her ATM after she's gone missing. You have him driving her stolen car. So you have a lot of evidence, circumstantial as it may be, that he was the last person to see her and he had every reason to want her dead. So it's a tough case, but it's still a righteous one and one I'm glad that Pueblo County prosecutors are pursuing.
Yeah, sometimes prosecutors will wait and wait and wait and wait and never bring the charges. But here, they believe they know who did it. And they've got circumstantial evidence, Randy. They've got the circumstance. And Randy, I'm trying to figure out the explanation that the defense is going to have for all the different stories, right? Like, remembering the truth is pretty easy, Randy. It's pretty easy. But when you come up with a couple different versions of what is happening and when it's happening, it's a little problematic, especially when my pregnant girlfriend is missing.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think the circumstantial evidence is really that good. Unless you're biased, unless you have some deep-seated belief that, men or this kind of man would say, oh, I've got a pregnant girlfriend, I need to kill her. I mean, that's not a natural, next step when you find out your girlfriend's pregnant. Is it a motivation to kill her? It might be a motivation to break up with her, to encourage an abortion. But the average person, the average reasonable person that we meet in society doesn't say, oh, if my girlfriend is pregnant, then one obvious solution is to kill her.
The allegation isn't that he's a normal person. The allegation is he's a murderer.
But based on what? He was a star basketball player. Did he have other crimes? Are there similar transactions? Why is it that we think he's a murderer?
The jury's not going to hear about his rap sheet, but he's got one. I mean, he's got he and his mother have a rap sheet.
Yeah, his mom.
He was arrested for murder. He was charged with robbery. He pled to a misdemeanor, but this isn't a non-violent individual. He has a criminal history. Whether the jury hears about it is another thing.
Due process is so important, though, and I think we're right. I think it's highly likely that he did it. But as I sit on the sidelines and guess, because he used her ATM card and he used her car, which is very similar to the behavior that he's used in the past. This guy robs people. This guy takes people's money. But I don't see the rap sheet tying to murder. And in this day and age, the fact that he'd have to pay child support is not, in my mind, a reason to commit a murder. So I will be fascinated to see what the defense says. But due process is so important here, guys. We can't just jump to conclusions just because he was the black boyfriend who got the white girl pregnant, and he's got the rap sheet, and she's the sweet girl.
Wait, how did this become a
Denver
case
driving
about
down.
race?
No.
How did this become a
Well,
case about race?
It's not a case
Hey.
about race, but I have to point out, Vinny, if you're going to ask, that we need to find out more about the situation and the fact that we are.
I'll tell you the
assuming that he did
situation.
it.
He got her pregnant. He didn't want to be responsible for a child. That's the argument I'm making in court. It's a simple one.
He's not going to be responsible for the
Yeah,
child.
it has nothing to do with race, and the text messages show that he was unhappy that his girlfriend got pregnant. He lured her there.
So you
and he had
murdered her?
every reason to kill. Well, he did.
So you murdered her?
He did. Yeah, he did. Lucas murdered Kelsie. That's the bottom line. And prosecutors have waited 8 years, and they're going to prove it to this jury.
All right.
He would have never had any rights to the child.
We
It
shall
would've gone to
see.
Kelsie anyway.
We shall see. We shall see.